Scott Morrison's calls to France are being left unanswered, despite President Biden smoothing over relations with their NATO ally. The fallout from the cancellation of the subcontract has overshadowed the second day of the Prime Minister's trip to Washington.
Kieran, this was a really significant day after the announcement of the AUKUS alliance, because it now moves from the what to the how. And that's why it was really important, these meetings on Capitol Hill, meeting with US lawmakers, because there is always the potential for some kind of legislative roadblock to be thrown up. The discussion around the French reaction has been really prevalent around Washington, D.C., especially with the potential for impact on the NATO alliance. And so this was a huge moment in that they did get Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, who perhaps unexpectedly had some praise for Scott Morrison on the climate change front, given she's very progressive on that, much more than you might anticipate you'd hear from the Liberal Party in Australia. But what we did see was universal support among Americans for this, and that's because there is really bilateral support for countering the rise of China. Significantly, the President, Joe Biden, did get that phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron. It seems like it was a productive phone call. The President offered some kind of apology, nothing to the substance of the AUKUS alliance or the fact that this submarine contract was cancelled with Australia at great cost to the French, but about how it was done, that they could have been given a bit more notice. And that seems to have appeased the French enough to at least send their ambassador here. There's also the broader context of the fact that the US is opening back up travel for Europeans to come into America and not be restricted by COVID-19 testing. And so that's been a major announcement this week and seems to have helped ease some of the tensions with Europe as a whole, but also France in particular. But Scott Morrison countered by the fact that Australia hasn't been able to get this phone call with the French yet by saying that we don't have the NATO alliance as that common ground to move forward on, and that one thing to bring us back, that he's asked for a phone call and it hasn't happened yet. But he didn't seem too concerned about that on the whole. He was focusing on the fact that he says that this submarine deal was a good deal for Australia, was in our national security interest, and in his opinion outweighs those repercussions from the French.
I'm glad that call took place. I'm glad that he was able to reinforce, not just from the United States perspective, but from all partners in this new arrangement, that we very much want to see not only France, but all the nations of Europe, our like-minded nations in Europe, playing a very important role in the Indo-Pacific.
Are you willing to apologise to Macron now, or when you get to speak to him, will you say sorry to him for what's happened?
I acted in accordance with Australia's national security interests.
So you want to apologise for that?
That is something Australia should always do.
So we've had the bilateral meeting in New York, now meetings with lawmakers. We know there's the Quad scheduled at the White House later in the week, but tomorrow Annelise has more of an economic focus.
Kieran, for the rest of the week, there's going to be, of course, the lead up to the Quad meeting, and that's with the leaders of India and Japan. That's going to be the big one at the White House alongside Joe Biden on Friday. That's quite significant in that this is all part of the US push towards the Indo-Pacific and about how they're trying to counter the rise of China there. We are also going to see a focus tomorrow in the Prime Minister's itinerary on the economy. He's meeting with a number of really senior leaders, Treasury Chief Jerome Powell. He's meeting with the head of the IMF and the World Bank. No doubt we'll be closely watching the issues with inflation in America and how that might impact globally. Also potential lessons to be learned for Australia in post-pandemic economic recovery. And so we'll wait to see exactly what comes out of those talks. But the other thing to watch here too is how these defence talks all play out, because that's going to be the major challenge for Australia in those years before we get those nuclear submarine capabilities, how we protect ourselves. Now we've aligned ourselves so strongly with the United States.